Hi, folks. Online Learning in a Hurry, episode 7. What is assessment for? And the more I think about this, and the more I think about this pivot to online that we're all going through right now, the more it occurs to me that we really need to have common language for assessment. We all need to be talking about the same thing. We all need to use the words sort of at least vaguely in the same way, or at least acknowledge what our own perspective is so we can have an informed conversation with the people around us. So, broadly speaking, in educational research, we talk about summative and formative assessment. A summative assessment is something that happens once you're done something. I have made a summary judgment on the thing you did. And a formative assessment is one of those things that I assess you, I tell you what you might want to do differently, and then potentially you change what you do, and then I might assess you again later. So, a summative assessment happens after the learning happened, and a formative assessment is part of the learning process, right? So if I punish my kid for eating a cupcake that they weren't supposed to eat, that is a summative judgment. You have done it, and I'm sending you to your room. If I say, well, let's see how your eating schedule works, and I work on why you did that, and then we work to change that process, that's a different approach. There are reasons for using either approach. But when we're using summative assessments, the switch to the internet becomes a really, really big problem because so much of what we do for summative assessments, and multiple choice exam is the easiest one to talk about. We give somebody a multiple choice exam and then we move on to new content. So even if it's a midterm, we're going to review all the content for the first half of this term, give you a multiple choice exam, judge what you know, and then move on to new stuff. If we went back to the stuff we learned before and it said, oh, you didn't know this and this and this, and then we went back and learned those things again, that would be formative. But that's mostly what we do with multiple choice exams. And right now we have tons and tons and tons of people who are trying to get their multiple choice exams online. And their concerns are thus. They're worried that if they don't give a multiple choice exam, the students won't come to class and they won't listen, and they won't pay attention to the content. That means that in that case, you're using the exam as a tool of power. You're using it to force people to do the learning. So it's a threat that happens at the end of the course that encourages you to do the learning. I would suggest that that's not a particularly healthy way to develop professionals. I mean, to some degree, we have structures we live in that sort of encourage us to do a variety of things, but you want people doing the work because they want to, and you want to develop people's interest in a field, not just create a situation where they're forced to do a certain thing. The second thing about a summative assessment is that we all need to agree ahead of time what we're going to learn. So you may say, well, that's what our objectives are for. And to some degree it is. But if I say, as an instructor, if I say what we're going to learn is X, and then I give you X, and at the end of the day, I go, did you X? Well, that's mostly an obedience process. That's me telling you what to believe, you telling me that you believe that, even if you do or don't. And then I go ahead and say, hey, you believe what I believe. Not a perfect situation as well. Again, if we're interested in developing people who can handle complex situations, who can be critical, complex people in our society, right? Because one of them is just power, telling people what to do, and the other one is a process of obedience, it's indoctrination. And to some degree, that's how we use assessment. Now, when we put those online, the questions that come up are, how do I know students aren't going to be cheating? How can I be sure, as one faculty member said to me the other day, that they're not going to go online and do research for the answers? Well, there's two parts of that. One, if you create a situation where success is just getting a straight answer, then you're sort of building cheating into the process. And I think to some degree, that's what a summative assessment does, is it builds cheating or the desire for it into the process. So if all I need to do, if you have a trick or something that's hidden and you know what the information is, but you hide it, and then you say, can you figure out what this is? And then if I get it, right, all I'm doing is creating a situation where you as a learner or a student are advantaged by coming in and trying to get it, trying to figure it out. So if you can work between yourselves to get the right answer and share it, and you get it back. I might argue that working together or collaboratively to find an answer is a good thing. Certainly, we think of collaboration as a skill that we want people to have, except in an exam where we want to suspend that. Now, I also realize that some people use summative exams as ways of checking to see whether or not somebody has the thing they need to be in that profession. So there's exams for doctors, there are exams for nurses, there are exams for um, accountants. There are sort of socialized external exams that we test towards to see whether or not somebody is ready for that profession. And I understand people's need for that to check whether or not somebody has learned enough to be trusted in a profession. We want engineers to be able to build bridges. Sorry, engineers. I know you don't just build bridges, to build bridges that don't fall down. Like, I get it. But the question becomes, does that multiple choice exam actually guarantee that? So if you can pass a multiple choice exam, does it make you good at something? If you can get the right of 4 questions. And one faculty member who doesn't use multiple choice said to me the other day, basically what you're doing is rewarding people for making the right guess. But if they get it like super wrong, if you get the really wrong answer, that's just the same as getting almost wrong. And that doesn't necessarily prepare people for the real world either. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is that if assessment is just something that we do for power, to encourage people to do their work, or to indoctrinate, to make sure everybody believes that what we do, or to gatekeep, right, to stop people from getting into a profession, I don't personally think that's good. You may think of those as necessary things that we have in our society, but you're not going to be able to do them on the internet, one way or the other. Even if you do believe that, you're not going to be able to. If you don't believe that, it might be time to start looking at how those assessments get done, right? And that's going to require more grading. I mean, the big advantage of a summative assessments, it's easy to grade. Let's be honest. You take a multiple choice exam, you run it through a system, you get all the answers, your grading's done, you get to go home. We're going to talk about this in a future episode, what some of the solutions are, but that idea of summative assessment and making sure students don't cheat is simply not going to work online. So if you're looking for those 3 things, you're just not going to get them. So good luck. I hope you guys are having a great day, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.